Hello, welcome to the Boss It podcast with Mark Edwards and Michael Humblett. This podcast is released every week and is an over-the-shoulder look of a frank and candid discussion between two experienced software executives, providing you with useful tips, techniques, and the latest concepts to help you grow your software business in the fast-paced digital age. So let's get into it. Here is Mark Edwards and Michael Humblett.
Hello and welcome. This is the Boss It podcast. Michael, hope you're there.
Mark, I'm here. How are you?
Good. Busy as always. Lots of interesting conversations over the last week or so.
Exactly.
And I'm hoping you've had lots of interesting meetings. Otherwise, this is going to be a very short podcast.
No. I'm going to start off with a real question, and it's an extremely important question. And I get this about every 2-3 months. Somebody, a business owner, phones me with this question. I'm just going to ask you. So imagine you have a business and you're selling a software product. And when you kind of start in the beginning, they are aiming their product at large corporates. And large corporates, it takes a long time. So while you're doing the process of the large corporate, other opportunities come on your road and you start marketing to others. And then you get in a Michael, and Michael pushes you like crazy to go on a niche, focus, build lots of marketing material to get an inbound engine going, and that starts running. So now comes the question. The guy phones me up and says, Michael, I have a problem. I have 2 very large corporates. They are consuming all my time in order to sell to them. You know how it goes. You need to create a document and another meeting, and it's endless. We're talking about deal sizes between 300 and 600K. He says, I can do that with a lot of risk that I don't win. Or I can do a lot of the other stuff, which is I need to build a marketing team and I need to reach out and build up the outbound channel. I need to make a choice on focus because I cannot do both. What would you say, Mark?
Yeah. So nice, easy.
Now you're thinking, why am I doing this podcast with Michael?
Yeah. You're sitting all week thinking, let me think, what's going to be a really tough, nasty question to throw at him? No, it's a good question.
It's a valid question. And it's a really important question because it's survival.
Yeah. No easy answers.
No, I agree.
And you can't, I don't think you can give one sort of standard answer that's going to fit all situations, because there'd be a lot of follow-up questions to ask, but quite happy to talk about some of the issues. I think one of the first ones is that I would be then following up with further questions is asking them about cash flow, because you know how important cash is with a business. Cash is king. And I think that
okay. Funnily for these guys, cash is not the main concern.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
So they can live for another 3-4 months without, they could do another 6 months without. Yeah, it's very rare, by the way, in that phase.
Yes.
But cash is not the issue. Yeah. But that makes life a bit more luxurious, right?
So their overall objectives is building recurring revenue, offering a SaaS cloud model. That's their strategic
transactional.
Direction. Yeah. Absolutely.
And the big ones have that large amount of transactions.
Yeah. And I think, well, in that case, I think wherever possible is keep to your strategy. And that is easier said than done, because those temptations of the large deals with a couple of corporates can be very enticing, and you can get sucked into them bit by bit, but also they can be very risky. I'm assuming that this company is a sort of small, medium-sized software vendor.
Small.
Yeah, small. Yeah, small. And it's quite easy for a corporate to realize that they will have the upper hand when negotiating with a company like that. They can probably also start to get a feel as to how important they are to that particular software vendor.
Yeah, but that then very quickly I ended up in a pricing discussion, because I told them, I said, look, you can't ask premium price because they're not willing to take that risk, 1. 2, although they understand that you have a massive impact, because they have a massive impact on the revenue of the company. I'm talking about 1% to 2%. Can you imagine on revenue, which is massive?
Yes.
They won't pay you the big premium price they would pay to an IBM.
No.
Right. So I said, whatever you have in mind, if you say 500K, you'll probably end up getting 200K,
Yes.
but you will have a logo. That's the one thing you want. You want to have the first bit, one of the first big references to scale your business.
Yeah. I think an interesting company for them to look at is a company called Ultimate Software. They have got a they've got a SaaS model. They're in the area of human capital management software.
Yeah.
If you do a search, you will see that there's a few articles about them. They've grown quite successfully, but one of the things that they did, and it was difficult, was that they kept to their model of building that SaaS platform, and they speak quite highly. Both that there are experts sort of within the business and external to the business that have said that and it's a form of bravery, I think, in some respects.
It's bravery, focus, and I also think, because I know a lot more about the company, I said to them, look, if you make this choice, you have to do one thing, that is, whatever you build for these guys and you make, because there's a lot of documents they need to write and a lot of PowerPoints and stuff they need to do, make it scalable so you can use it for everybody else. That's the only thing you need to make sure of, so that if things go wrong after 3-4 months, you have all the material built where you can just change a logo.
Yeah. Yes.
So I told them, go for it. So that was my advice. I said, go for it. I want you to focus. We go all in. So we're building price. We're doing everything for those two. And we give them, I put a deadline on it. I said, okay, we give it 4 months. If it hasn't happened, we have to move somewhere else, or you're gonna be bleeding all over the place.
Mm. You see, I think my advice would probably be a bit contrary to that. Is if their strategy is that they want to go the model of SaaS, it takes all of their efforts, all of their focus to really become successful with the SaaS cloud model. And I don't think you can be distracted. I've also been bitten personally. I had a client that we were in a proactive sales process with them, and I actually effectively sold the business twice, but on both occasions they had big projects that went wrong. And I don't think through any fault of their own. It was just that those companies, they just turned the tap off. They just had a change in direction, and they decided to stop the project.
That's the danger, yeah.
And that stopped the sale, because that business suddenly becomes very, very different over the next 12 months. Very frustrating and a very painful process to go through. And they've survived and they've come out of it at the other end, but it's a big, big hit. But it's a difficult decision, and it's very difficult to give a sort of a sweeping answer. But they are obviously some of the things that you need to look at. Is you're going to have a client that will have a very strong hold over you. If that project goes wrong, it can have a big impact. It can kill a business. But cash is king. Mm-hmm. And building up the cloud model, building up the SaaS business takes marketing, it takes effort, it takes time. You can't get there overnight, whereas the big hits are obviously very, very attractive.
If you read the SaaS, some of these blogs of let's say the gurus,
yes,
a lot of them will tell you that you should go to the mid-segment, SMB, because you can be much faster with multiple customers. And corporate is just,
sure.
It's actually, if you really think about it, a large corporate will always want you to customize it fully tailored to them, which by nature is a bit against the SaaS model. Although when you then look at Salesforce, you could say it doesn't really matches, and then we get up into the service discussion. But I think the hardest part, I think the decision, you also need to look a bit differently, I think, because a lot of the SaaS platforms I'm seeing, they don't have automatic onboarding. So it's not very easy to get it installed and get up and running in the beginning. It is after a few years, but at the beginning it's not. So they always have this custom part. And that makes sales hard in a lot of these cases.
Yes, they have these internal salespeople that I think can help take people on. There is a lot of talk about self-service onboarding now.
Yeah. But it's a product feature almost. They don't have the integrations. They are just not there yet. And over time they will. But then somebody needs to pay for the discussion.
I mean, it relates back to a number of other factors or observations that we've made about the most successful companies. It's about the customer experience. it's the user interface, it's the user experience, which is satisfying in all respects. But if you think about it, one of the things we're always saying is in those three areas, so customer experience with the business, user interface of actually using the product, really clean, very logical, sexy even. It's got to be good, and their experience overall of using that product long term needs to be good, because you need to retain those customers, and you need those people to be evangelists who are going to be shouting about your products to other people, because people do like to do that. They become your best salespeople. But to do that long term, it's hard. You don't just need to be good at it. You need to be excellent at it. You've got to be better than your competitors, because the bar's always rising. And I think to be really good at that, plus being good at the marketing, you can't be all things to all men. And that's the problem, where you've got these big projects on one side, you've got a platform that you're developing on the other side. And that is the biggest problem of most technology businesses I come across.
In that context, I had a very funny discussion with the VP of sales yesterday. We were talking about CRM. He says, Michael, give me some advice on CRMs. And he says, you know what? Most CRM systems I see come from engineers. They never have done a proper forecast in their life, because a forecast is all about commit and upside and that kind of stuff. And you almost never find that type of category in a CRM. And he says, real salespeople, they will know that immediately. They will be looking for it. And like in the Salesforce and all of it, you have that. But it came later. They realized it was missing. So that's why most people end up doing a forecast in Excel, because you basically extract everything in a certain time period, and then you say, is it going to come or not? Because you can't say that in a pipeline, right? It's the same trick. I agree. I fully agree.
Yeah, the other thing that I see a lot is that these technologists, they become removed from the problem that they're solving. And this is where you need to be so focused. You need to know that niche business sector better than your clients do. That's really tough. You know, I've said many times before, how many professional footballers do you see that are also, top level swimmers? People don't do two sports at a high level. But in the tech world, we try to do that all the time in maybe 5 different business sectors with, 4 different technologies and, handfuls of different. It's a nightmare. And it seems to be the smaller the company, sometimes the more you can see that they diversify. I know why, because they're chasing the dollar.
I actually sometimes send engineers, like the guys who code, over to the customer and say, go see how these people work in real life.
Yes.
And then they came back sometimes with big eyes and say, guys, we just, this interface, although it looks on paper the best interface in the world, people just don't understand that the bottom is left or right. Or it was really funny sometimes. So we would do that. But then again, at a certain stage, you get bogged down in the sprint and it needs to go fast. And it's always the same thing. It's like, it's a tough one. I like customer success for that reason, because that customer success can solve a lot of those problems.
Yes, you need to get that. You need to get the success, but you need to have that communication with your customer. But how many software vendors do you think actually use their own software? It's not always possible, but they need to be using it.
It's ridiculous, actually. By the way, even if they use it, their own internal projects will always be pushed behind because they can't get money for it. It's like an internal cost.
I'll tell you what, the conversation I've had more times than I can remember is where they've said to me, this is a fantastic solution. In fact, all businesses should be using it. And I'll say to them, next question I ask them is, so how do you use it? Yes. Well, we haven't yet, but we're going to.
Voila, exactly.
So you really believe in this solution. You really believe that your customer should be buying this. They should all be buying it, but you're not.
Where I get scared, really scared, is because I've been seeing a lot of CRM vendors. I'm sure that 70% of CRM vendors don't use their own CRM, which is completely insane, right? I'm like, and I'm amazed, and I'm like, don't tell anybody, Michael, and I'm like looking at it, I said, this is not possible, guys. Come on. How can you solve the problem if you don't even...
That's anyway. A really good example, actually, because there's no excuse, is there? Because at the end of the day, I know a lot of the businesses that we speak to, they see themselves as technical scientists, and they are. But ultimately, they're one thing, that they're in a sales business and they're selling technology.
I have a
They should have a CRM.
True. I have a really good story about a company called Cumulus Pro coming out of the GoFax world, and it's about digitization. Yeah. And this guy, I was very early on, he said, I'm going to build a cloud SaaS platform for scanning. That's how he started. He does many other things, but in essence, that's where he started. And I remember me coming from the old school world on those days, classic licenses with maintenance, all of that. I was helping them and I was sitting and I said, everything they used was cloud-based. So they killed every standard license in the company, and everything they did was cloud-based. It went from simple things like Gmail to Cloud Drive, everything. And they ran into problems internally you cannot imagine. And I told him, why do you do this? And he said, Michael, it's the only way I can fundamentally understand how to be a SaaS company, how to sell this to other people. Yeah. And he nailed it. Huh? He really, truly understand it. For instance, in those days, 5 years ago, it's funny, I was from morning till evening, I was explaining that the cloud is safe. I haven't had that conversation the last 2 years.
No, you're right.
No. And because now it's crazy. Nobody's asking where I'm saying, guys, you should ask because this is insane. But
you're right.
In those days, I was explaining it, and because we were using Azure and Amazon and all the stuff, we knew it was safe because we looked at the system and knew, there is no way you can get in between here, right? Mm-hmm. So I really like the approach, but it's tough. Huh? It's a bold decision.
That actually, the company that I mentioned before, Ultimate Software, the main essence that you can see in making that change was they just had to be brave and they had to do it regardless. That's the direction we're going in. And I think once they'd communicated that this is what we're doing, everybody got aligned. And I think that's what you probably need to do, is you need to take that brave step. You need to explain why you're doing it. And then you get everybody focused on that goal and not going in the other direction. And as you like, move faster. Move faster.
Sprint, boy, go fast.
But you're right.
I started ending my. It's really ridiculous, Mark, but I started ending my emails with the sales sprint never dies.
But it's absolutely true, and the studies, and it's still ongoing, that we're looking at the fast growth software companies. They do seem to be able to move faster. And the speed that, and I don't mean that they're just in the speed that they're growing. Obviously, the speed that they are growing with these particular companies is phenomenal, but they also make mistakes. But they make mistakes quickly. They realize that they're making those mistakes because they're looking very closely at the results that they're getting, and they change, because business is also about experimentation. And they're, with the SaaS world, lots of businesses out there, they're breaking new ground. Who knows? Absolutely could be guaranteed that doing these set of actions is going to lead to results. You make a best instinctive guess. You can perhaps model yourself, and that's what we're looking at, is getting lots and lots of data in about these successful companies so we can pull out those common denominators. But ultimately, every business is unique, and there is a degree of experimentation about it, but they are able to make changes quickly. And that seems to be an important factor for software businesses, all businesses, when you think about it, because the pace of change is increasing. Make that change, get it done, and then monitor it. And if it's not working, go do something else.
True.
I don't see anybody with all the magic answers.
No, because it's tough and it's different every single time. Huh? But it's. I seen it when I started with the whole YouTube thing. I thought you do one movie, you spend all the time, and then magically everything will be, people will watch it. It doesn't work that way. It's like you're putting varnish on something, it's like a little layer, another little layer, and after a while you have so many layers that there is no escape, and it will work. But it takes time.
Yeah, it does. And I think the other thing is that it's tough. It's a tough world to be in. To have a successful business, particularly in the software tech, is very tough, and you have to be very resilient. So to have that resilience, I think that you've got to have a certain amount of confidence to actually chance your arm and to go for it. But you've got to be careful that doesn't become ego. I think
No,
people
that's
almost
another story. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that you've got to be prepared also to say, actually, we've got that wrong, and let's not worry about it. Let's not beat ourselves up, and you go and try something else. The thing I would say from a lot of the very successful people I've seen is they're very prolific.
Yeah,
They're
that's
doing a
right.
lot. They're not overanalyzing. I've seen
No.
the other type of people that I'm speaking to them. They're talking about, and we're going through this process. We're analysing the next steps. I see them a year later. They're still analysing, and you know, the research that they did a year ago is probably out of date now. That's far too long. You know, creating documents of 300 pages. No one's going to read it. Forget it, guys. Be
No,
prolific.
no.
You got to stop. You've got to give yourself some thinking time. But there's a limit. There really
Yeah.
is.
Nobody will read the word on page 3 that you've discussed for 3 weeks on.
No, exactly. And there's no maths formula that you've got to work out here where you come to the perfect solution, the perfect answer that's guaranteed to give you the results. It just doesn't work.
By the way, a very nice, how do you say, analogy, something like that, something
Yep.
that looks. I was watching a food program yesterday on Netflix on Paris, and I was in Paris 2 weeks ago, and it was an American guy going to Paris. So I was interested in, what is this guy going to say about what to do in Paris? And at a certain stage, he goes to a restaurant, and
What
there was this.
wasn't McDonald's, was it?
No, there's a real brasserie, and the brasserie was actually really cheap because you need to know, if you haven't been in Paris for a while, we all think of French cuisine as haute cuisine. It's very expensive, and it always is the same. It's like close to perfection.
Yes.
And this brasserie is really cheap. And I noticed when I was in Paris, I've seen a liberation on the pricing of food. It's really cheap, and the quality is actually pretty good. So I thought maybe it's me, I'm in the wrong bar or whatever. So this guy does the whole tour. And then there's this French guy that explains there is a whole new trend in Paris, which is the opposite of the haute cuisine, is we give you food at a very, very, very reasonable price, and you only have like 2 options, but it doesn't matter. And suddenly, Mark, I'm thinking, why on earth did I start talking about food? Because I'm getting hungry.
It's a bit like when you go to the supermarket and you're hungry. You find you fill your trolley up, don't you? With all this
It's just
stuff.
ridiculous. I'm suddenly seeing all these dishes, and I'm thinking, I gotta stop talking. So, Mark, what have you been up to these days?
Well, been talking to some interesting companies. Had quite an interesting experience over the weekend, actually. I was talking to a couple of guys that have a lot of experience in the area of programmable logic systems, so industrial control
PLCs?
systems.
Is
Yeah,
that kind of
PLC.
stuff?
Yeah,
Yes. Okay, I can
PLCs.
follow. Yeah.
Another acronym, just what our industry needs. But and they were looking at the security area, and then I could see that they were talking to me and discussing about the service that they were offering, and I wanted to obviously advise them about creating equity value within their business, about recurring revenue, about providing a very focused solution, finding the niches in the market, and I was able to bring to them the other part of the equation that enabled them to offer that complete service. So we had a call on Monday. These guys immediately started talking the same language, and they've got a follow-up call today. So that was quite exciting. It was just, I meet a lot of companies, and sometimes you can see the 2 sides of the equation, A and B. I
Yeah.
think, well, put these guys together,
And
they
it's
really
funny,
could offer
it's
something.
not in the traditional business you are in. Huh? Well,
No.
most of the time it's like software. I mean, this is a bit of a different approach to
Yes,
the
it
PLC
is.
business, very different.
There's a platform. There's a software element to this. We say sort of software tech. So, but I enjoy business, and I enjoy getting your head involved in these. And when they were talking about some of these systems, DST and Honeywell systems, it's another bit of knowledge. But I could see from a strategic point of view, they were right. There is a market opportunity there, because some of these control systems, they cost millions, and some of them it's millions to replace, and some of them are 20, 25 years old, but they are a security weakness. They
Yeah.
can be attacked. So these guys are looking to put something together there. Another company that I looked at, and I actually came across them when I went to the artificial intelligence exhibition the week before, and we mentioned a little bit about that. But I had another look at this company, and I was going to mention them to you because you would be interesting. It's a company called GWEEK, GWEEK, Speech Intelligence Analytics. And one of the things that we've spoken about many times is about the importance of communication skills. And they've got as their marketing tagline, communication skills for life, love, and work. And they've got some artificial intelligence, speech intelligence, which actually is able to rate people. And they say, I spoke to, I think it was the CEO or the CFO of the business, and they said that where their technology is being used is predominantly by large organizations in helping their salespeople when pitching their businesses.
Does this have like this sentimental analysis stuff in there?
Sentiment? Well, I asked them about that. They said
I like that.
Yes, sentiment analysis. Yeah, it also is looking at them from a visual point of view. So they can video, and then they upload this, and they talk about things like hand gestures. Because with politicians, they are coached as soon as they start to come to the front bench and they're going to be on TV. They are intensively coached about how to communicate, how to come across in a very positive way. Mm-hmm. I don't see that so much in the sales field. Not to that same degree. I think that you get presentation skills where a lot of it is talking about how to put together PowerPoint presentations, modulating your voice, very basic skills, but not the whole round package. And this was quite interesting. How far they are progressed, I don't know, but worth having a look at. I found them quite interesting. It was, so it's GWEEK, GWEEK, and then speech.com. GWEEKspeech.com. So
it's funny because yesterday I had somebody calling me from the Netherlands who almost told me a very similar story, and they're actually applying what you're saying to documents. So they have documents and they apply speech pattern recognition to documents. And one of the things they do, and they've been scaling really fast, is with the whole GDPR, is all the legal and going through all these legal documents, and they're way faster than any existing document engine that we know.
Wow. Yeah.
So I was very intrigued with what he's saying. And then he started talking about sentiment analysis with people, and I'm like, oh, good God. But, a lot of this is hype. I need, you know what? I'll invite the guy to the Sales Acceleration Show. I'll have a chat with him.
Yeah, do so. I mean, the sentiment analysis and a lot of that on the documents, because document management, that area, we've both been involved in that for years, me for a very, very long time. And there have been a lot of companies around offering that. I think there's some clever technology that can definitely help organizations. Because one of the things I see time and time again, and I'm thinking for sort of the people that we're speaking to, the way they communicate to the market, some of the documentation that they create, they understand it, but I'm not sure the rest of the world does. Some of the documentation, just go and look on the websites. You look at these websites and you think, well, I know a bit about technology, I know a bit about software, but I have not got a clue what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And when you challenge some of these people, they start to protect themselves and make excuses. Say, guys, don't, take this as a positive. If you're selling, X amount with that sort of communication, what could you do if you really learned to communicate? Why they don't want to use plain language? They want to be seen as techies. They want to be seen as
their
geeks.
Kingdom, huh? You attack them on their kingdom.
Yeah. There's so many examples like that, that it's almost frustrating. I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to take some of their key statements, some of their positioning statements, take them out onto the street and say, let's speak to 100 people, see what they say.
Yeah, but then I would fight you and say those are not my suspect and my targets to sell to, right? So you have to. But I see what you're trying to do.
But I would counter that by saying, but if you can put it into simple, everyday language that anybody can understand, then you're never going to lose them. And it's from where you start that conversation, and there will be techies there that want to know the nth detail. They want that detail, but you don't start the conversation there. And also, there are a lot of decision makers that are not technical at all, and they will want to get a feel of what's all this about. Should I even waste these guys' time in looking at this? And if they go to something they don't even understand, you're immediately starting behind. You're never selling it nowadays. I think there was a study done recently which says that you're on typically with technology sales, you've got over 6 people involved in the decision. There's probably 1 or 2 key decision makers, but there's a handful of people that are involved in this. And to what degree do they have enough technical knowledge that they understand what these acronyms are? I mean, acronyms where they don't even once say what that is. I mean, the problem I have is I see so many acronyms, even when I know them, I sometimes forget them and I think, oh, what's this one? You do need to have it there, but they don't, for some reason, they don't want to do it.
No, true.
So what else has been happening to you this week?
So I did an interesting experiment last week. I basically thought, if I think about what I'm doing, is the original idea behind what I did with the whole sales thing was that I wanted to help people to become better sales because I was so frustrated, people trying to sell to me, and I just thought they were idiots. And which is bad for the sales function. That's why people are not proud to be sales. And when you say sales, everybody thinks of the car dealer and all of these guys. But so I'm thinking, if I go back to the root of what I'm doing is, I need to do sales for sales. So I actually phoned up about 25 people, all executives of scale-ups. And I said, guys, I want all of you don't know each other. You're all in the same phase, almost all in the same phase, trying to figure out marketing, trying to, swimming the lake of rejection. Yes. Why don't I get you all together and I get you a speaker, which is extremely rare to find. I know you guys will never be able to pay nor get access to this person, but I can because it's a she in this case. She needed, she owed me a favor, let's say it like that.
Yep.
So I said, do you want to come? 18 showed up. And we spent 3-4 hours listening to Hilde, explaining about all the non-verbal tactics. It was really cool about influencing people. How do you hold your hands? I mean, exactly what you were saying.
Okay.
And they really, she trains let's say execs, CEOs of companies to go on stage and to make sure that they are not lying. How do you do non-verbal? Really, really interesting stuff. And so they were there. And they loved what Hilde was saying. Not only did they love that, they also just loved talking to each other.
Yeah.
And then they asked me, could we do this again? So I made a post as a joke actually on LinkedIn saying, and I did it yesterday, I said, hey, I just started my mega secret humble sales club, because it's a humble club. Of course, my last name, it's funny. Humble sales club, and thanks to these guys for coming. And I took a picture of all the guys because I said, one of these guys is going to scale like crazy. And I had so much reaction on this. It's ridiculous. I mean, I had over 10,000 views. It's going and people are reacting. And I said, if you know the secret password, you're in. So I have people sending me the most insane words the whole time, which is funny. I like that. But I realized the power of community, I was actually sitting in the background. I didn't need to sell anything to them. I was proud. I'm sitting there looking at them and saying, look, they're happy, they're connecting. It's all value. This is how you grow a community. This is how you grow a business. This is how you give something back.
Absolutely.
So the next is planned in September, Mark, and you're invited to come and speak about equity value, unlocking equity, all of that.
Love to.
So because they're all scale-ups and at a certain stage, they need to start thinking about this.
Why don't we do an event in London? And
we get them all over to London.
Let's get some interesting people together. Let's talk about some of these subjects. By then, I'll have quite a lot of information on the studies that we've been doing about these fast growth software companies. Yeah. And let's get people in a room and let's throw some ideas out there.
Yeah. As I said, and the first one that's trying to sell, I will spot him and I will nail him against the wall.
We are now at 34 minutes.
Oh, God. So we were on fire, Mark. We were on fire. It's caffeine.
Yeah. We've both had our coffee. Yeah. And it's fired us up. But that was I enjoyed that. So
me too.
Really good fun. So this was the Boss It podcast. As always, we'd like to get some feedback. We've both been getting some feedback recently, which is really encouraging. And we're changing things all the time. We heard that people didn't like a big intro at the front, so we're straight into it. And we will keep listening and we will keep changing. Please like and review. So great to speak to you, Michael, and look forward to speaking to you next week.
Same here. Speak to you next week, Mark.
Thanks, Michael.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.